Hello team, this is a video to help walk you through how to update a student's IEP for their annual. This is a test website, so all of the students in here are not actually Ravenswood students. So the first thing I would do when updating a student's IEP is go over to student's IEP. And let's say I want to update Carla Coppersmith. Or actually, let me kind of go over this student because they have several. So if I am updating Poppy Fields, I can see here that there's a pencil, a piece of paper, and a file folder. This pencil is where I update the future IEP. This piece of paper is where I view the student's current IEP, and this folder is where I would look to find old affirmed IEPs from the past. So I'm doing a new IEP. I click on the pencil. That alert came up because there's an amendment here that wasn't affirmed because this is a test site. So when I look down this list, there are several pages that I can update. Okay, you'll see that I wasn't in the correct place because I clicked view current IEP and I should have hit cancel. The reason that I knew I wasn't in future IEP is because I didn't see this pencil right here that allows me to edit. So when doing a student's IEP, the first thing you edit is the invitation notice of meeting. And to do that, I click on the pencil to edit the form. You shouldn't see any other notices of meeting here unless you created them. If you see old ones, go ahead and delete them. And to create a new one, you either hit the pencil or hit add. Now, let's say this is an annual IEP. So I would hit annual. If it was an annual and a triennial, I would hit both. And I would use parent address 1. This will automatically populate all of the address information. This is a test site, so it didn't do that, but it would put the student's entire address, the parent's name, and then you would select today's date, the date we send to the meeting home. Then we say when the meeting is scheduled for, put in the time of the meeting, the location, and maybe the room number. And you would list out all of the people that would be attending. And if there were extra people attending, like a speech and language teacher, you would list that in here. And then you would click save. And you would send that home to let parents know when the meeting is. So I'm going to save and return. That takes me back to this list. And then I want to hit over here, return to list. Now the next page I'm going to open is, and I'm actually going to first show you all the pages that you would update for a very common annual IEP. Information eligibility, present levels, special factors, statewide assessments, goals, services, educational setting, and the notes and the parent consent happen during the meeting. So I'm going to walk you through each of those pages and give a brief overview of what you would do. So I'm going to click on edit form. You would update the date of the IEP. Let's say the IEP is on January 28th, 2011. And then here I like to click or calculate next dates. That will automatically update the next annual. If this was an evaluation meeting, you would update those dates as well. Then you just look to make sure that everything's correct. It has the current information. Make sure you're adding in email addresses because that's becoming very important now that we're in distance learning. Just look through, see if everything's correct. This indicate disabilities is filled out by a school psychologist. And then once you've checked that page, hit save. And then I like to go return to list. Now you can see that I've updated these two pages because it shows the time right here. We're not in a transition year right now, so we're going to skip, or in a transition grade, we're going to skip transition page 1 and transition page 2 and then go to present levels and click edit. Then you would list here strengths and preferences, any concerns the parent shares with you. Here you would look up the students' CASP scores and indicate how they scored on the assessment in each category, or if they took the CA, or if they took the LPAC. These are old test scores. If they had scores in 5th, 7th, or 9th grade for their physical fitness test, or any other assessments that you know they have taken, for example, the Fontes and Pinnell assessment, or any other math or reading assessments, and if they have a recent hearing and vision screening. You would also update pre-academic, academic, and functional skills. This is how they've done on their curriculum-based assessments or reports back from teachers. Communication development is typically updated by the speech and language teacher, or it just says age appropriate. Gross and fine motor is updated by the occupational therapist, or it says age appropriate. Any notes about their social emotional needs or behavioral needs. Vocational, you ask them what they want to do when they grow up. Any needs in terms of academic and daily living skills, any health concerns. In this section here at the bottom, we would indicate any areas where we expect to have students' goals in. For example, if they have a low reading level, you would say reading. If they have low math scores, you would say math. If they have some concerns around attending to work and making sure they do complete all their work, you may have a work completion goal. Then you click save and go return to list. So that was present levels. Then we go into special factors. In special factors, you would indicate if the student does or doesn't need assistive technology. That's an iPad or anything like that. Does the student require low incidence services? Most of the time you're going to say no. Indicate whether the student is or isn't visually impaired or deaf and hard of hearing. If this is in annual, most of this will already be filled out for you. You would indicate whether the student is an English language learner or not, and if their goals are appropriate or linguistically appropriate for them. This also was probably already noted in the IEP, but if they're in structured English immersion or if they're in the dual immersion program, you would indicate here if the behavior gets in the way of the student's learning, and if so, you would indicate some strategies that you would put in place. For example, a particular goal, and then if there's a goal, you would say the behavior goal is part of the IEP, and then you click save and return back to the list. And then the next one is statewide assessments. We edit the form. We would indicate here whether the student is to participate in the statewide assessment without testing accommodations, with testing accommodations, or in an alternate assessment. So let's say they're participating with accommodations. When you say with, you would select the supports, and it gives you a list of all the supports they might need. Be sure when looking at supports, it says not available for CA. So if you selected the CA, this isn't available for them. And there's certain ones that are only available for certain grade levels. So make sure you pay close attention to that. And then we hit save, and then we return back to that main page. Same thing for the math assessment, and science only for grades 5th and 8th. And then the physical fitness test, if they should have adaptations when taking that, or if they should participate without accommodations. The DRDP is only for preschoolers, so you wouldn't need to do that. And if they need supports when taking the LPAC assessment, or if they're taking the alternate to the LPAC assessment. And then you hit save and return to list. I'm going to skip over goals for right now and go to services, and I'll come back to goals in a separate video because that's a little bit more complicated. So services, you would list everything the IEP team considered when thinking about the proper placement for a student. That's probably already labeled in an annual. And then harmful effects is looking at if the student is pulled out of general education, what is the potential harm for a student for missing out, or do the benefits outweigh the cost of being pulled out? Then on this page, we would list any accommodations or modifications the student might need. So if you want to list an accommodation of extra time, you would hit add accommodation. There is a non-exhaustive list here, but you can also write in extra time. And then the start date and the end date would be 1 year later and a day before. And then save. So now that accommodation is in there. Oh, school location. You would save and save and return. So now you see that accommodation is listed here. Same thing for accommodations and modifications. Now you see the student has specialized academic instruction listed. If I want to continue this to their new IEP in the same amount, I would just click continue to new IEP. Amend service allows me to increase or decrease the amount of services. Discontinue is obviously to stop the service, or I can add a whole new service, something that's not already listed. So this has SAI and Vision. If I wanted to add intensive individual services, I could add it. Let's say I want to add it starting today and then ending 1 day before a year from now. And the agency is the district of service. They're going to have intensive individual services in a group, and it's going to be session based. So 30 minutes, let's say 3 times weekly. In the regular classroom, public day school, and then the start date, and then save. And when we go back, that service is now listed on the student's IEP. Here is where you would say whether they have special education transportation or not, whether they have extended school year or not. And if they do have extended school year, we would list specifically what services they would have during ESY. If these services are already listed here, just be sure to update the date for the brand new IEP. Then you hit save and then return to list. And now we're going to look at educational setting. PE would be offered in the general education setting at the district of service in that particular school. And then all special education services are provided at the school of residence. This is for preschool. Then here, regular classroom, public day school. And you would list the percentage of time the student is in the regular classroom. So for example, if the student was in the regular classroom for 80% of the day, it automatically does the math for you that they're outside for 20% of the day. And then anytime they're pulled out, there will be a statement here. Student will not participate in the regular class for academic areas of need because of a need for intensive support. Or something of that nature to indicate why exactly the student is pulled out of the general education classroom. Then you would note any other agencies that are involved, and promotion is based on the district, and we update every trimester by progress summary support. And if there's no transition, you say no transition at this time and hit save and return to list. And you will see that we've updated all of the different pages on the IEP. The only other page to update is goals, and I'm going to do that in another video because it's a little bit different. Please feel free to watch, rewatch, pause, and go back as needed. It's a little bit complicated the first few times through, but then it becomes pretty easy. Thank you.